Hello everyone, I'm Udarang Wickramasinghe and I'm presenting our work on 3D mesh extraction from volumetric image data. Often, in clinical and research practice, a mesh representation is used to model the surface morphology and to compute area-based statistics of structures found in medical images. Such an approach typically starts with a CNN, like a unit, which takes an image volume as input and produce a segmented volume as output. Afterwards, false positive regions found in the output, such as the area highlighted by the red box, are removed. Then, Marchin-Cube algorithm along with mesh smoothing is used to obtain the final output mesh. In our work, we propose Voxel2Mesh, an end-to-end trainable architecture that combines all these steps into a single model. This not only gives a unified architecture for mesh extraction from input image volumes, but also improves the final results as we demonstrate later. Here we present the proposed Voxel2Mesh architecture. The top part of the architecture inside the red box is a standard unit. The bottom part of the architecture inside the green box produces the mesh output. It takes a sphere mesh as input and gradually deform it step by step by following the features from the voxel decoder. The idea of deforming an initial mesh using mesh convolution layers has been used to generate 3D mesh models from 2D images. But to the best of our knowledge, this is the first time it's been adapted for segmentation in volumetric images. The mesh decoder proposed in the architecture consists of three main parts. They are the mesh deform layer, adaptive unpooling layer, and the learned neighborhood sampling layer. Now we look at them in more detail. As the name suggests, mesh deform layer perform updates to vertices in the mesh. Each vertex in the mesh at a given step L has a feature vector FL associated with it. This vector consists of its coordinates VL, a latent feature vector ZL from previous mesh deforming layer, and a feature vector XL plus 1 from the voxel decoder. At each mesh deforming step, we first compute the latent feature vector associated with the vertex for the next step, which is denoted here by capital ZL. Then, using that, we compute the vertex update. Both the function HL and delta L are implemented using 4 layers of mesh convolution layers. Next, learned neighborhood sampling. This is responsible for extracting feature vector XL from the voxel decoder feature vectors. Here the term sampling refers to performing trilinear interpolation in voxel decoder feature vectors at coordinates VL. Instead of sampling only at vertex location VL or a fixed neighborhood around it, we learn where to sample around VL. This gives more flexibility to the mesh decoder and enables it to make more accurate predictions. Now we discuss about the adaptive mesh unpooling layer. Mesh unpooling enables us to gradually increase the vertex count as we keep on deforming the mesh at each stage. Current strategies mainly focus on uniform unpooling, but this increases the number of vertices exponentially. The issue with this approach is that to properly fit the underlying shape, we need higher vertex count at certain locations. To achieve this, uniform unpooling would increase the vertex count uniformly throughout the mesh, resulting in a GPU memory overflow. To succumb with this limitation, we introduce adaptive mesh unpooling, which only introduce vertices that are necessary to define the underlying shape. At each step, similar to uniform unpooling, it first introduces vertices using edge splitting. Then, we deform the mesh with these candidate vertices. Afterwards, we discard candidate vertices that didn't move significantly from its parent edge. Afterwards, we need to remesh the vertices because discarding vertices when we discard vertices, we lose the face information. For this, we use the fact that we are learning a mapping from a sphere to the target shape and use the convex hull algorithm to remesh the sphere. Then we transfer the connectivity information from the sphere to the deformed mesh. Convex hull algorithm cannot be run directly on the deformed mesh because deformed mesh can be non-convex. By removing unnecessary vertices at each step of deformation, we stop the exponential increase in vertex count that occur when we perform uniform unpooling at each deforming step. Finally, we talk about the loss function. The loss function consists of 5 terms. The first term is the chamfer distance between the ground truth surface points and the predicted surface mesh points. The second term is the cross entropy loss applied at the end of voxel decoder. The other 3 terms are the edge length loss, normal consistency loss, and the Laplacian loss. They regularize the mesh output. Now we present a summary of results on 3 different datasets acquired using CT, MRI, and electron microscopy imaging modalities respectively. In all instances, with the exception of synaptic junction, it achieves the best performance. Here are some qualitative results from Voxel2Mesh architecture. We show, as shown with orange boxes, voxel-based approaches like the unit tend to produce false positive regions in their output. But Voxel2Mesh can easily avoid this since we introduce a strong prior about the final topology of the structure by starting with a sphere or a set of spheres if it's a multi-class segmentation problem. In conclusion, we have proposed an end-to-end trainable architecture that takes an image volume as input and outputs a 3D mesh surface. This makes the post-processing steps usually required to obtain such a mesh from a volumetric representation unnecessary while preserving the accuracy. Furthermore, this bridges the gap between voxel-based approaches and surface-based representation that exist in current volume segmentation literature. As future work, we plan to extend our approach to structures with more complex topologies, such as the synaptic cleft. Thank you.